We don't always get to hear just her, right? Today we read from Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. Now when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east and have come to worship him. When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And assembling all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. They told him, In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it is written by the prophet. And you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For from you shall come a ruler who will govern my people Israel. Then Herod summoned the wise men secretly and ascertained from them what time the star appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word that I too may come and worship him. When they had heard the king, they went their way, and lo, the star with which they had seen in the east went before them till it came to rest over the place where the child was. Excuse me. When they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. And going into the house, they saw the child with Mary his mother. They fell down and worshipped him. Then opening their treasure, they offered him gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh. And being warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they departed to their own country by another way. This is the reading of the word. Thanks be to God. I know that Star Wars has been the thing. If you have not seen it, you should. Okay, again, added to Kara's bucket list of awesome things to see and know in life. Now, Star Wars has been the thing over the past months, but as I have thought and processed about this particular day, I turned to the words of J.R. Tolkien, All who wander are not lost. Lord of the Rings? Yes. Again, add it to the bucket list. It comes in book form too, so it's book and movie, both are good. But I always come to those phrases, and maybe that's because one of my favorite songs of Epiphany is I wonder as I wander. You see, what we celebrate and how we celebrate Epiphany is a little bit different. You see, Epiphany really didn't occur just 12 short little days after Christmas. In reality, it occurred about 2 years after the birth of Jesus. At least that's what theologians and biblical scholars and scholars of the time tell us, that it occurred about 2 years afterward. Which is the reason why when you're reading Matthew 2, they're talking about they enter and find Jesus in a house, not in a manger. So if you have the wise men by your manger scene, you're wrong. Just letting you know. You see, it takes a while sometimes to find Christ. I mean, some of us are like, no, hello, I grew up in the church. I've known Christ my entire life. Baloney. We know who he is. We know and we understand the wonderful power of his presence. But that really just means that Christ is our acquaintance. Like, we know that person by face, by sight, you know. But he's not our next door buddy, neighbor, friend, and purveyor of goodness that we understand. We're not in a relationship with Christ. We just know him. There's a difference, right? Because how many of us claim our Christianity and say, oh, I know who Jesus is? Well, knowing who he is awesome and wonderful, but if you don't know why he came and for what purpose you are called to because of that, then you're failing. Sorry. And even if you understand a little bit, remember, failing is like 60% and below. Or maybe, isn't the failing rate still like almost 70 and below? If I remember correctly. Oh, I'm getting head nods. So 70 and below is failing.
It's changed.
Man. So even if you understand it 70% of the way, you haven't gotten it yet. Do you feel good? Who's feeling really good right now? We have to know Christ. Not just know of Christ. And perhaps that's the whole reason we call this day Epiphany. The word epiphany means to reveal. It comes from the Greek word epiphania. Yeah, say that 8 times fast. Which means reveal. The concept of epiphany is that it's an experience of a sudden and striking realization. Philosophically, they say that this only happens every once in a while, and it happens after a great deal of thought and contemplation. Research, all those sort of things that come together, and then suddenly, the wonderful cartoon light bulb goes off over top of your head and you get it. Don't we wish we had those like on a sensor every once in a while? That is what Epiphany is. It's not this run-of-the-mill, oh, it happens every day sort of event. It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience sometimes. They're rare. They are precious. And we're blessed enough to celebrate and honor that each year. Because what Christ is a revelation of what has come to be and what we have come to understand. It is all of the inner workings of God's understanding in this world that have come together into one being. To one revelation, one person. That's kind of powerful if you think about it. Powerful and frightening. Because those magi knew it. You see, they studied the stars in the sky. They studied them until it revealed to them that something was happening. Those who study astronomy will tell you, we're in this time between here. I mean, how many of us actually know our zodiac signs and live by what they tell us? I mean, hello, Leo, energetic, crazy. I think that works. So these wonderful men were studying the stars. They were trying to understand. And it led them to Christ. Well, not specifically, because I think that that's an important part of the story. They were just looking for the King of the Jews. They were looking for the next king. They didn't understand that this next king would be a child. There's a wonderful meme out there. You know how I love those wonderful images of crazy. And it talks about after the 3 wise men came the 3 wise women, and they brought diapers, formula, and something else. It's the truth, though, isn't it? I mean, what is Mary going to do with gold, frankincense, and myrrh besides sell it or, quote-unquote, return it and get something better and more practical for their specific needs? I mean, hello, what are you doing with it? Particularly since we know in the story right after this that they got another dream and fled to Egypt to escape Herod. these wise men wandered. They followed a star so that they could come to know Christ personally. We wander in our lives, don't we? I don't know how many of you have. It's a fun time. I mean, career choices. If you talk to any preschool class when they are filling out their career day wonderfulness, you get a really interesting list of what they plan on being when they grow up. I looked at Sophia's preschool class. One that amused me the most was old. You know, some kids want to be a scientist. Sometimes they're really specific, like a neuroscientist or like rocket scientist. Or one kid wanted to be a banker. One kid wanted to be a ballerina, a fireman, a police officer. You see, when you ask a kid that when they're 5, it's an awesome and hysterical thing. We find it funny, right? It's amusing. You ask them again when they're 10, and their answers might be a little bit more specific or directed or whatsoever. You ask when you're 15, though, those sophomore, juniors in high school, you say, what do you want to be when you grow up? We expect an answer. Because we know that in a couple of years they should be going to college and they should be on this particular career path and getting it straight, right, and wonderful. I mean, that's the expectation. That they go from high school into college, and in college, if you, if you go into college with an undeclared major, you know what they tell you to do? They say, well, you know, you can always declare a major and then switch. Because it's better to have it declared and at least do something directed than it is to not. Am I right, Mr. Admissions? Oh, that's how it was in college for me. They said, go in and say something. Do something. And if you can't pick, do communications, because that's easy. Hello. Not all of us know where we want to go. Not all of us know what we want to do. And it's not just when we are children going into the threshold of adulthood. We hit those points as we are as adults as well. There comes a time when we have to wander a little as we're making decisions about the next points in our lives. When you're sitting next to that really special loved one and you're going, do I really see myself next to you for the next 10, 15, 20 years? That's a point. And sometimes we say, nope, next one. Or sometimes we wish, right? And then the next threshold or point of understanding is we wander a little bit in our lives whether or not to have a family or to not have a family or to move or to not move or to make that career choice or to switch jobs. Just because we don't have it all together doesn't mean we're lost. Because I sure as heck know that the plan that I make at the beginning of the year is not the plan I lived out by the end. Because how many of us make those oh-so-great New Year's resolutions? Okay, how many of us are not raising our hands because we don't want to own up to them so we don't have to hold ourselves accountable to them? Is that a better answer? I say New Year's resolutions are wonderful. Just give yourself a lot of grace and forgiveness along with them. Because our plans are good and well and wonderful. But they don't always work out the the way we expected. Life takes a lot of twists and turns, and as we are wandering around our paths of life, it does not mean that we are lost, because we have a focus point. Christ. You can't wander too far when you keep your focus on Christ. You can't get lost too far if you see the light at the end of the tunnel and know that at some point you will be there. You don't go too far off the path if you keep Christ at the center of your life. Perhaps that's the epiphany, the revelation, the revealing nature of the power of the light in this world. Each of our faith journeys are different. Some of us take a good 2 years to be able to fall on our knees and worship. Some of us were the shepherds who heard it and said, "Here I am." Some of us are like Herod and said, "Hoo-hoo, wait, someone's taking over?" No. Today is Epiphany Sunday. And we can experience Christ as a new and fascinating revelation. Good night.